My name is Julie Williams and I'm 28 years old now, but this story takes me back to when I was just 14. That's when I learned what kind of man my father really was, and it wasn't pretty. I was walking home from school on a Tuesday afternoon, my backpack heavy with textbooks I'd never use again after that day. The crosswalk signal was green, so I stepped into the street like I'd done 1,000 times before. That's when I heard the screech of tires and felt my body flying through the air like a rag doll. When I hit the pavement, pain shot through every bone in my body. My left leg was twisted at an angle that didn't look human, and blood was trickling from my forehead into my eyes. Cars stopped, people rushed over, someone was screaming for an ambulance. But through all the chaos I saw him. My father, Robert Williams, standing on the sidewalk about 20 feet away. Our eyes met for exactly 3 seconds. I know because I counted them in my head, desperately hoping he'd run to help me. Instead, he looked around like he was checking if anyone noticed him, pulled his baseball cap lower over his face and walked away. He walked away from his own daughter lying broken in the street. The paramedics arrived 5 minutes later, but those 3 seconds of eye contact with my father felt like an eternity. As they loaded me onto the stretcher, I kept looking for him, thinking maybe he'd come back. He never did. That was the day I realized I was truly alone in this world, and it would take me 14 years to understand why he abandoned me there. The morphine made everything fuzzy, but I remember every word my mama said when she finally arrived at the hospital 3 hours later. She was still in her work uniform from the diner, her name tag reading Hannah, slightly crooked, tears streaming down her face. "Baby, what happened? They said you were hit by a car." She grabbed my hand so tight I thought she might break my good fingers. "Mama, Daddy was there." My voice came out as a whisper. "He saw me get hit and he walked away." The look that crossed her face wasn't surprise. It was confirmation. She closed her eyes like she was trying to decide whether to tell me something, then sat down heavily in the plastic hospital chair. "Julie, baby, your daddy, he's got problems. Big problems that I've been trying to protect you from." "What kind of problems?" "The kind that make a man choose himself over his own child every single time." She wiped her eyes with a tissue that was already soaked. "He owes money to some dangerous people, baby. The kind of people who don't care if you're 14 years old." I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the tiny holes while trying to process what she was telling me. "So he just left me there?" "He was probably scared that if he helped you, those people would find him. But that don't make it right, baby. That don't make it right at all." The doctor came in then to tell us about my shattered femur, the concussion, the road rash that would leave permanent scars. But all I could think about was my father's face in those 3 seconds. Not afraid, not panicked, just calculating whether helping his daughter was worth the risk to himself. Recovery took 8 months. 8 months of physical therapy, learning to walk again, and dealing with the whispers at school about the girl whose own father abandoned her on the street. But the physical healing was nothing compared to the mental wounds that were just beginning to fester. Mama worked double shifts to pay the medical bills that insurance wouldn't cover. I'd sit at home, staring out my bedroom window at the street where it happened, wondering if other fathers would do what mine did. The answer, according to my neighbor Mrs. Johnson, was absolutely not. "Honey, I've seen a lot of sorry excuses for men in my 73 years, she said one afternoon while bringing me soup. "But a man who won't help his own child when she's dying in the street? That ain't a man at all. That's something else entirely." 3 months after the accident, strange things started happening. Our mailbox got smashed twice in 1 week. Someone spray-painted "snitch" on our front door. Mama's car tires got slashed while she was at work. "It's him," Mama said quietly one night as we watched the police take photos of our vandalized porch. "He thinks we're gonna tell people about his business, about why he really didn't help you." "What business, Mama? You keep talking around it but you never tell me the truth." She looked at me with those tired eyes that seemed to age a year every day. "Your father is moving drugs for the Riverside crew, baby. Has been for 2 years now. He owes them $30,000 and they told him if anyone in his family draws police attention, they'll make us all disappear." The puzzle pieces finally clicked into place. He didn't walk away because he was scared. He walked away because saving me might have cost him his drug money. On my 16th birthday, the first letter arrived. My name was written in handwriting I recognized from old birthday cards and report card signatures. The ones from back when Robert Williams pretended to be a father. "My dear Julie," it began, and I almost threw it in the trash right there. But something made me keep reading. "I know you hate me and you have every right to. What I did that day was unforgivable, but I need you to understand that I was trying to protect you and your mama from something bigger than you know. The people I was involved with made threats about what would happen if I drew any attention from the police or paramedics. I thought if I stayed away, they'd leave you alone. I read that paragraph 5 times, feeling my anger build with each word. He was still making excuses, still trying to justify abandoning his child in the street. The letter continued, I've been clean for 6 months now, baby girl. I left that life behind and I'm working construction in another state. I send money when I can, but your mama sends it back. She won't even tell me how you're doing. Please just write me back. Let me know you're okay. I showed the letter to Mama, who read it with a face like stone. He sent money twice in 2 years, Julie. $20 here, $50 there. Like that was supposed to fix what he did to you. Are you gonna let me write him back? That's your choice, baby. But remember, a man who'll leave you bleeding in the street once will do it again when things get hard. That's who he is, not who he wants you to think he's becoming. I folded the letter and put it in my dresser drawer with the dozens of others that would follow over the next 12 years. I never wrote back, but I kept every single one, waiting for him to finally tell the truth about why he really walked away. The truth came from an unexpected source. My cousin Jerome, who'd been in jail with my father 3 years after the accident. Jerome showed up at our door on a rainy Thursday night, looking nervous and checking over his shoulder every few seconds. Julie, I need to tell you something about your pops, but you're not gonna like it, he said, declining my offer to sit down. He's been telling people a story about what happened that day, and it ain't the story you know. My stomach dropped. What story? He's been saying he rushed to help you, but some lady told him to back off because she was a nurse. Says he was crying and praying over you until the ambulance came, then followed you to the hospital, but they wouldn't let him see you because your mama told them to keep him away. The room started spinning. That's not what happened. I know it's not, cousin. Because I was there. Jerome had been walking 2 blocks behind me that day on his way to meet some friends. He saw everything. The car, the impact, my father's 3-second calculation, and his deliberate walk in the opposite direction. He told everyone in county jail that your mama was poisoning you against him, that he was the victim in all this. He had grown men feeling sorry for him, talking about how hard it is when baby mamas turn kids against their fathers. I felt something shift inside my chest, like a locked door finally opening. All those years of wondering if maybe I'd imagined his coldness, if maybe shock had made me see things wrong, all of that doubt evaporated in an instant. Jerome, will you tell people the truth if they ask? Already have, cousin. But most people believe what they want to believe. Just wanted you to know what kind of lies he's spreading about you and Auntie Hannah. After Jerome left, I pulled out all of my father's letters and read them again with fresh eyes. Every single one was a masterpiece of manipulation, painting himself as the wounded party while never once taking responsibility for what I saw with my own eyes. I got a full academic scholarship to State University, partly because of my grades and partly because the admissions essay about overcoming trauma resonated with the review board. Finally, I was free from the shadow of that intersection, free from the whispers, free from the constant reminders of the day my father chose himself over me. But freedom didn't last long. The phone calls started during my sophomore year. Always late at night, always when I was studying for finals or preparing for big presentations. The caller ID always said unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. Julie, baby girl, please don't hang up. I just want to hear your voice. The first time I hung up immediately. The second time I listened for 30 seconds before hanging up. By the 5th call I was staying on the line long enough to hear his whole pitch. I'm different now, baby. I've got a steady job, my own apartment, I even go to church every Sunday. I know I made mistakes when you were younger, but I was sick then. Addiction is a disease, Julie. I'm not that man anymore. You weren't addicted to drugs when you left me bleeding in that street, I finally said during the 7th call. You were addicted to being a coward. That's not fair, Julie. You don't understand the pressure I was under, the threats. I understand that every other father in the world would have run to their child. I understand that you looked at me lying there and calculated whether I was worth the risk. I wasn't. The line went quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed from pleading to defensive. You've been listening to your mama poison your mind against me for too long. I'm your father, Julie. I deserve respect. Respect is earned, I said and hung up. The calls continued for months. each one revealing more of his true character. I should have seen it coming. My college graduation was announced in the local paper, complete with a photo and mention of my academic honors. Of course he'd show up. It was the perfect opportunity to play the proud father in front of an audience. I was standing with Mama and Mrs. Johnson after the ceremony, taking pictures by the fountain, when I saw him approaching through the crowd of families. He was wearing a suit that looked expensive, carrying flowers, and had the biggest fake smile I'd ever seen. "Julie, my baby girl, look at you." He opened his arms like he expected me to run into them. "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. So proud." The families around us turned to watch what they assumed would be a touching reunion between father and daughter. I could feel their expectation, their assumption that this was a happy moment. "What are you doing here, Robert?" "I'm here to celebrate my daughter's graduation, of course. I know we've had our differences, but this is bigger than that. This is family." Mama stepped closer to me, her hand protective on my shoulder. "You don't get to show up here and pretend to be her father now. Where were you when she was learning to walk again? Where were you when she had nightmares every night for 2 years? Hannah, please. I made mistakes, but I'm trying to make amends. Julie, these are for you." He held out the bouquet of roses, and I noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "I don't want your flowers. I want you to leave. Baby, you can't still be holding on to what happened when you were 14. People change. I've changed." Mrs. Johnson, all 76 years and 5 feet of her, stepped forward. "Son, I was there that day. I saw what you did. And if you think a bunch of flowers and a fancy suit erases that, you're even more foolish than I thought." Other families were starting to stare now, sensing the tension. My father looked around, realizing his public reconciliation wasn't going as planned. "Fine," he said, his voice getting harder. "But this isn't over, Julie. I'm your father and I'm not going anywhere." He kept his word, he wasn't going anywhere. After graduation, the phone calls increased to daily occurrences. Then came the letters to my new apartment, somehow delivered despite my address being unlisted. Then came the visits to my workplace. I was working as a marketing coordinator at a nonprofit downtown, finally building the independent life I'd dreamed of. But every Tuesday, like clockwork, Robert would show up during my lunch break, standing across the street from the building, just watching. My coworker Esther noticed first. "Girl, there's some man outside who's been staring at our building for the past 3 Tuesdays. Should we call security?" I looked out the window and there he was, leaning against a tree, wearing sunglasses but obviously focused on our entrance. When he saw me in the window, he waved like we were friends. "That's my biological father," I said, the words tasting bitter. "He's been trying to force a relationship for months." "That's not trying to build a relationship," Esther said. "That's stalking." She was right, but what could I do? He wasn't technically breaking any laws. He stayed on public property, never threatened me directly, and always claimed he just wanted to check on his daughter. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening when I came home to find him sitting on my apartment building's front steps, holding a bag of groceries. "I brought dinner," he said, standing up with that same fake smile. "Thought we could talk like adults. How did you get my address?" I'm resourceful when it comes to my family. The way he said resourceful made my skin crawl. "Julie, we need to talk. I know you're angry, but I'm not leaving until we work this out." "There's nothing to work out. You abandoned me when I needed you most and now you're harassing me. Leave or I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. Call them. Tell them what? That your father wants to have dinner with his daughter? They'll think you're crazy." He was right and we both knew it. But something in his tone, the confidence with which he threatened me, triggered a memory from that day 14 years ago. The same calculating look, the same prioritization of his own needs over my safety. "You know what? You're right. Let's talk." I unlocked my building's front door. "But not here. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at 7 p.m. We'll settle this once and for all." I spent all night planning what I was going to say, how I was going to finally make him understand that his actions had consequences. I brought a voice recorder. If he was going to keep telling people lies about our relationship, I wanted his real words on tape. Riverside Park was busy enough to feel safe but quiet enough for a private conversation. I found him sitting at a picnic table near the playground, watching children play with their actual fathers. Men who pushed them on swings and caught them at the bottom of slides. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said as I sat down across from him. "I came because I have some things to say, And I want you to hear them clearly so there's no confusion going forward. Julie, before you say anything, I need you to know that I love you. I've always loved you even when I couldn't show it the right way. You don't love me, Robert. You love the idea of controlling me. There's a difference. That's not true, baby girl. Everything I did was to protect you and your mama. You think I wanted to walk away that day? You think that was easy for me? This was it, my chance to get the truth on record. Tell me exactly what happened that day. What were you thinking when you saw me lying in that street? He leaned back, his expression shifting to something I'd never seen before. Genuine emotion mixed with shame. I was scared, Julie. I was so scared that if I helped you, if police started asking questions about who I was and where I lived, it would bring trouble to your door that you couldn't handle. What kind of trouble? The kind that would have made a car accident look like a paper cut. His voice dropped to a whisper. I owed money to people who don't accept excuses. They'd already threatened to hurt you and your mama if I brought any heat on their operation. So you chose to protect their drug business over your own daughter's life. I chose to protect your future over your present. If I'd helped you that day, we'd all be dead by now. I stared at him, realizing he actually believed his own justification. You really think that's love? Robert, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth for once in your life. I leaned forward, studying his face. Why now? Why are you so desperate to reconnect after all these years? Something flickered in his eyes, just for a second, but I caught it. Because you're my daughter and I love. No. The truth. What changed? He was quiet for a long moment, looking at his hands folded on the picnic table. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Flatter, more honest. My mama died 3 months ago. I'm sorry for your loss. She left everything to me. The house, her savings, everything. But there's a catch. He looked up at me with eyes that had lost their manipulative sparkle. The will says the inheritance only goes to me if I can prove I'm actively rebuilding relationships with my children. There was the real reason for all the letters, calls, flowers, and fake tears. How much money are we talking about, Robert? $250,000. The house is worth another $100,000. I laughed, actually laughed out loud. So this whole performance, this entire year of you stalking me and pretending to be a changed man, it's all about money. It started that way, he said quickly. But being around you again, seeing the amazing woman you've become, it made me realize what I lost. The money doesn't matter anymore. Liar. Julie, I swear on my mother's grave. Your mother who had to put a clause in her will to force you to act like you cared about your own child? I stood up from the picnic table. The same woman who probably spent years listening to you make excuses for abandoning me? His mask finally slipped completely. You don't understand the position I'm in. I need that money. I've got debts and the people I owe aren't patient. Still choosing money over family. Some things never change. Don't walk away from me again, Julie. I'm warning you. I turned back to face him. You're warning me? About what? About making an enemy out of the wrong person. The mask was completely off now. This wasn't the remorseful father trying to reconnect. This was Robert Williams showing me exactly who he'd always been. Are you threatening me? I kept my voice steady, but my heart was racing. I'm telling you that you can make this easy or you can make this hard. All I need is for you to sign a paper saying we've reconciled, that we have a relationship. You don't even have to see me after that. And if I don't? He stood up from the picnic table, suddenly seeming much larger and more intimidating. Then I'll make your life very difficult. I know where you work, where you live, what gym you go to. I know you take the same route home every night at 6:15 p.m. The blood drained from my face. You've been following me. I've been learning about my daughter's life. There's a difference. That's stalking, Robert. That's illegal. Prove it. You think anyone's going to believe that a father trying to reconnect with his daughter is stalking her? Especially when I have character witnesses who'll testify about how heartbroken I've been about our estrangement. I thought about Jerome's warning, about all the people my father had convinced that he was the victim in our story. He'd been building his defense for years. You're sick. I'm desperate. There's a difference. He walked around the picnic table, moving closer to me. Julie, I don't want to hurt you. But I need that inheritance and you're going to help me get it. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'm going to start visiting your coworkers, telling them stories about your childhood. I'm going to show up at your apartment building every day until your neighbors get tired of the drama. I'm going to make your life so miserable that signing one piece of paper will seem like relief. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police. He grabbed my wrist, not hard enough to leave marks but firm enough to stop me from dialing. Put the phone away, Julie. We both know they won't do anything. For a moment, I was 14 years old again, lying in that street watching my father choose himself over me. But this time I wasn't powerless. Let go of my wrist, Robert. Not until you listen to reason. I said let go. I twisted my arm free and stepped back, putting distance between us. You want to know what your problem is? You think I'm still that scared 14-year-old girl who needed her daddy's protection. But I'm not. Julie, don't make this harder than it has to be. I've spent 14 years building a life without you. 14 years getting stronger while you got more pathetic. You think you can intimidate me? You think you can force me to help you steal money from your dead mother? It's not stealing, it's my inheritance. It's blood money just like everything else you've ever touched. I pulled out my phone again and this time he didn't try to stop me. I'm not calling the police, Robert. I'm calling my lawyer. His face went pale. Your lawyer. Did you really think I'd come here unprepared? Did you think I didn't know this was about money? I showed him the voice recording app that had been running the entire conversation. I've got everything you just said on tape. The threats, the stalking, the admission that you've been following me. You can't use that in court. I didn't consent to being recorded. This is a one-party consent state, Robert. I can record any conversation I'm part of without telling you. I smiled, feeling power flow through me for the first time in years. And my lawyer is going to love the part where you threatened to make my life miserable. He stared at me with a mixture of rage and disbelief. You've turned into a cold, vindictive woman. Your mama poisoned you against your own family. My mama taught me to recognize predators. And that's all you've ever been. A predator who happened to share DNA with me. I'm your father. No, I said, walking backward toward the park entrance. A father is someone who runs toward his child when she's in danger, not away from her. A father protects his daughter from men exactly like you. You're just a sperm donor with delusions of importance. This isn't over, Julie. Yes, it is. I turned my back on him and walked away just like he'd done to me 14 years ago. But this time I was choosing to leave someone who deserved to be abandoned. The restraining order was approved within 48 hours. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Macon, said she'd rarely seen a case with such clear evidence of harassment and stalking. The voice recording sealed the deal. Robert violated the order twice in the first week, once by showing up at my workplace and once by having flowers delivered to my apartment with a card that read, "Daughters should forgive their fathers." Both violations were documented and reported. The inheritance case took 3 months to resolve. It turned out my grandmother had been smarter than any of us realized. The will specified that Robert had to provide credible evidence of genuine reconciliation with his children, including testimony from neutral witnesses and documentation of positive interactions over a sustained period. My testimony to the probate court, along with the voice recording and evidence of his stalking behavior, convinced the judge that Robert was attempting to manipulate his way into the inheritance rather than genuinely rebuilding family relationships. The money went to charity instead, specifically to an organization that helps children of absent parents. 6 months after our confrontation in the park, I got a letter from Robert's public defender. He'd been arrested for threatening another woman he was trying to scam, and they wanted to know if I'd testify about his pattern of behavior. I said yes. Today I'm 31 years old. I'm married to a man who would run through fire to protect me, and we're expecting our first child. When people ask if I think my father might want to meet his grandchild someday, I tell them the truth. Some people don't deserve second chances, and protecting my family means keeping toxic people out of our lives. Robert Williams taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. That blood doesn't make you family, and that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from someone who will never change. That 14-year-old girl lying broken in the street finally got justice, not from the courts or the police, but from becoming strong enough to say no to the man who failed her when she needed him most. Some bridges are meant to be burned. The big question: did Julie do exactly what needed to be done, or was there still a chance to salvage those relationships? I'm genuinely torn, so help me out in the comments. And if you're here for more stories about people choosing themselves over toxic family drama, Subscribe and turn on notifications. I promise you won't regret it.